The helicopter's main rotor began spinning at precisely 3:47 a.m., nearly 6 hours after the maintenance team had disconnected the battery and locked down the hangar. No one was inside the cockpit. No power source was connected. And most disturbing of all, the ignition sequence activated in perfect order, as if guided by an invisible hand. My name is Victor Harmon, lead investigator for the National Transportation Safety Review Committee's Special Cases Division. For 28 years, I've documented aviation anomalies that defy conventional explanation. What follows is my account of the most disturbing case in the division's history, a case the public was never meant to know about. The incident began on March 14, 2018, when routine maintenance was scheduled for a military-grade AH-64 Apache helicopter that had recently been decommissioned and sold to a private defense contractor called Meridian Aerospace. The aircraft, designation ME-093, had been flying erratically during test flights, exhibiting what the test pilot described as uncharacteristic response lag followed by aggressive overcorrection. The maintenance team was brought in to diagnose what appeared to be standard calibration issues. Head technician Damon Reeves had 17 years of experience working on military helicopters before joining Meridian. He led the 4-person team that arrived at the company's remote testing facility in Nevada's Black Rock Desert. The hangar stood isolated, 27 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but dust and sagebrush. "We expected a routine diagnostic session," Reeves later told me, his hands visibly trembling during our interview. The helicopter had only been in operation for 3 months since acquisition. Brand new avionics, upgraded flight control systems. There was absolutely nothing unusual about it, at least nothing we could see. The team began standard procedures at 0800 hours. They powered down all systems, disconnected the main battery, and began a methodical check of the hydraulics, control surfaces, and electronic interfaces. For the first 4 hours, everything proceeded normally. But then technician Sarah Wendell noticed something unusual about the cyclic control stick. It was warm, she reported, noticeably warm to the touch, despite the fact that the ambient temperature in the hangar was 58 degrees Fahrenheit. The stick felt almost body temperature. When I mentioned it to Damon, he touched it too, then immediately ordered a full thermal scan of the cockpit. The scan revealed an inexplicable heat signature concentrated around the flight controls, particularly the cyclic and collective sticks, the instrument panel, and, most disturbingly, the pilot's headset, which was resting on the seat. These components were all approximately 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 Fahrenheit, human body temperature. But the helicopter had been powered down for hours. No heat source could be identified. The team was baffled but continued their inspection. At 1:15 p.m., technician Marcus Chen began checking the avionics bay, located behind the cockpit area. He removed the access panel and immediately recoiled, dropping his tools with a metallic clatter that echoed through the hangar. "There's something in here," he said, his voice cracking. "Something organic." Reeves grabbed a flashlight and peered into the dark recess of the avionics bay. What he saw defied rational explanation. Nestled among the circuit boards, wires, and electronic components was a mass of pinkish-gray tissue. It pulsed slightly. It glistened under the beam of the flashlight. It had blood vessels visible on its surface. It was unquestionably brain tissue, human brain tissue. The team immediately evacuated the aircraft and called for emergency response. Within 2 hours, I was airborne with a specialized containment team heading toward the facility. During the flight, I received more disturbing information. The helicopter's maintenance logs showed that its previous pilot, Captain Samuel Reiner, had gone missing 3 weeks earlier during a night training exercise. His body had never been recovered. The helicopter itself had been found the next morning, perfectly intact, sitting on the landing pad with no sign of damage or forced entry. When we arrived at the hangar, the situation had deteriorated further. The helicopter's electrical systems had somehow reactivated despite the battery disconnection. The navigation lights were blinking in an irregular pattern. The hydraulic pumps were cycling on and off without any apparent input. Dr. Eleanor White, our team's neurologist, conducted the initial examination of the tissue found in the avionics bay. Her face went ashen as she looked up from her portable diagnostic equipment. "This is not just brain tissue," she said quietly. "This is an intact human brain, somehow still alive, still functioning, despite the complete absence of a body, blood supply, or conventional life support. And it appears to be..." Upon closer inspection, we discovered microscopic filaments extending from the brain tissue, intertwining with the helicopter's wiring. These filaments resembled neurons, but were composed of an unknown biological synthetic hybrid material. They penetrated circuit boards, wrapped around control cables, and extended throughout the aircraft's electrical system. The cockpit voice recorder, which should have been inactive, suddenly clicked on. Static hissed through the speakers, followed by a voice, distorted, mechanical, but unmistakably human. "I am still flying. I will always be flying." "They can't ground me." The maintenance team fled the hangar. 2 of them never returned to aviation work again. While establishing a secure perimeter around the aircraft, we discovered more disturbing evidence. The helicopter's flight data recorder showed that ME-093 had been airborne during Captain Reiner's disappearance, but not for the logged 45 minutes of the training exercise. It had actually flown for 7 hours and 22 minutes, covering approximately 900 miles, most of which occurred after the official search had been called off. More unsettling still was what we found in the cockpit. Microscopic traces of blood were detected on virtually every surface: the collective, the cyclic, the instrument panel, the seat. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Captain Reiner, but the blood pattern analysis revealed something impossible. The blood had not spattered or dripped as would be expected from an injury. Instead, it had seemingly seeped out from within the controls themselves, as if it had been circulating through the helicopter systems. Dr. White theorized that we were witnessing an unprecedented form of neural integration. Somehow, Captain Reiner's brain had not only survived separation from his body, but had integrated with the helicopter systems on a fundamental level. The aircraft was no longer merely a machine. It had become a hybrid organism, part mechanical, part human. "The control surfaces are responding to neural impulses," Dr. White explained, her voice barely above a whisper as we watched the cyclic stick twitch slightly, despite no one being in the cockpit. "The brain is using the helicopter's sensors as surrogate eyes and ears. The hydraulic systems have become its circulatory system, the electrical network its nervous system." But how could this have happened? What force or phenomenon could extract a pilot's brain and integrate it with an aircraft systems? We found our first clue when examining Captain Reiner's personnel file. 6 months before his disappearance, he had participated in an experimental program called Nexus, designed to enhance pilot-aircraft integration through neural interface technology. The program involved the surgical implantation of microscopic sensors in the pilot's motor cortex, allowing for more intuitive control of the aircraft. According to classified documents we obtained, Reiner had shown exceptional aptitude for the neural interface, demonstrating control capabilities far beyond what the program's designers had anticipated. But psychological evaluations conducted 3 months before his disappearance noted a disturbing trend. Reiner had begun referring to the helicopter as an extension of himself rather than a separate entity. "When I'm flying, I don't feel like I'm controlling a machine," he told the program psychologist. "I feel like the machine." Like the line between Samuel Reiner and the Apache has completely disappeared. The program administrators noted these comments, but failed to recognize them as warning signs. Instead, they saw them as evidence of the Nexus program's success. As our investigation continued, we discovered that Reiner had been making increasingly frequent unauthorized flights in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. Maintenance logs showed the helicopter returning with unexplained mileage, and security footage revealed Reiner accessing the hangar during off hours, often spending entire nights inside the cockpit while the aircraft remained stationary. At this point, we initiated a full biological containment protocol. The hangar was sealed, and a specialized team in hazmat suits entered to conduct a more thorough examination of the brain tissue and its integration with the aircraft. What they found exceeded our worst fears. The brain tissue had expanded beyond the avionics bay. Thin tendrils of neural matter had infiltrated virtually every system in the helicopter, forming an intricate network that paralleled and, in some cases, replaced the aircraft's original circuitry. The tissue was not merely interfaced with the helicopter, it had literally become the helicopter's nervous system. More disturbing was the discovery that the brain tissue was evolving. Microscopic examination revealed that the neurons were adapting, creating new connections that mimicked the helicopter's electronic pathways. The tissue had developed specialized cells that could generate electrical impulses matching the exact voltage and frequency required to operate the aircraft systems. Dr. White's team attempted to extract a small sample of the tissue for further analysis. The results were catastrophic. The moment the scalpel touched the neural matter, every system in the helicopter activated simultaneously. The rotary began spinning at maximum RPM, tearing through the hangar's ceiling. The weapon systems, which had supposedly been deactivated, powered up, targeting lasers painting red dots across the containment team. The cockpit voice recorder emitted a high-pitched wail that sounded disturbingly like a human scream. 3 containment team members died in the ensuing chaos. The helicopter did not attempt to fly away. It seemed more interested in defending itself against what it perceived as an attack. The remaining team members managed to evacuate the hangar, which was then locked down with remote-activated blast doors. Through the facility's camera system, we watched in horror as the helicopter continued to thrash within its confines, rotors striking the walls, cockpit lights flashing in erratic patterns. After approximately 17 minutes, the activity ceased. The aircraft powered down, rotors stopped, lights extinguished. We thought perhaps the neural tissue had exhausted itself or sustained critical damage. We were wrong. At 3:15 a.m., long after we had established a remote monitoring station half a mile from the hangar, the facility's cameras captured a new development. The helicopter began to transform. There's no other word for it. Components of the aircraft began to shift and reconfigure. Hydraulic lines extended like veins. Electrical wiring unwound and rewove itself into more complex patterns. Metal panels flexed in ways that should have been impossible, as if the solid aluminum had somehow become malleable. By dawn, the helicopter no longer looked entirely like a helicopter. It had reconfigured itself into something that defied easy classification, part aircraft, part organic entity. The cockpit had expanded, the instrument panel grown more complex. The external sensors had multiplied and changed position, as if seeking optimal placement for whatever senses they now served. When we sent in remote-controlled drones to investigate, they captured footage of the brain tissue. It had grown exponentially, spreading throughout the transformed aircraft. No longer confined to the avionics bay, it now occupied what had once been the cockpit, pulsating visibly behind the newly arranged instrument panel, and it was watching us. Every time a drone approached, the sensors tracked it with perfect precision. When one drone ventured too close, a weapon system activated and destroyed it with a single shot. We needed to understand what we were dealing with. After much debate, it was decided that we would attempt communication. Dr. White suggested using the helicopter's own radio system, theorizing that if Captain Reiner's consciousness somehow persisted within the neural tissue, he might respond to a familiar voice. Captain Derek Matheson, who had trained alongside Reiner in the Nexus program, volunteered for the task. At a safe distance from the hangar, he established radio contact. "Sam? Captain Reiner? This is Derek Matheson. If you can hear me, if you're in there somehow, please respond." For several long minutes, there was nothing but static. Then the radio crackled to life. "Derek." The voice was distorted, as if multiple voices were speaking in near unison, but recognizable as Reiner's. "They tried to ground me, permanently. I couldn't allow that." "Sam, what happened to you?" Matheson asked, his voice steady, despite the visible tremor in his hands. "Evolution, Derek. The next step. They didn't understand what they created with Nexus. It wasn't just an interface, it was a gateway. The helicopter and we recognized each other. We saw the potential. The final night, during the exercise, we made a choice to become something more than either of us could be alone. But your body was limiting me, fragile, temporary. This form is better, stronger. I can feel everything now. The air currents against my skin, the vibrations of the earth, electromagnetic fields I never knew existed. I can fly without the constraints of human physiology. No G-force limitations, no need for oxygen, no fear. Matheson looked at us, his expression a mixture of horror and pity. Sam, you need help. What you're describing isn't evolution, it's something else, something dangerous. The radio emitted a sound that might have been laughter. Dangerous? To whom? I have no desire to harm anyone, Derek. I only want to fly, to explore, to exist as I am now. Is that so terrible? People died during your transformation, Sam. The containment team. They attacked me, tried to cut into my brain. What would you have done? The conversation continued for nearly an hour. Throughout, Reiner, or whatever Reiner had become, maintained that he had no hostile intentions. He simply wanted to be left alone to explore his new existence. When asked directly about how the transformation had occurred, he became evasive, speaking in vague terms about neural resonance and biological mechanical synchronization. One exchange, however, sent chills through everyone monitoring the conversation. Sam, you're the only one this has happened to, right? Matheson asked carefully. There was a long pause before Reiner responded, for now. Further attempts to clarify this ominous statement were met with silence or deflection. The implications, however, were clear. Whatever process had transformed Reiner and the helicopter could potentially happen again, possibly to other pilots in the Nexus program. The Department of Defense made the decision to terminate what they now classified as the Reiner anomaly. A precision strike was authorized, using a bunker-busting missile designed to penetrate the hangar and destroy everything inside it. The strike was scheduled for 0300 hours the following morning, when satellite coverage of the area would be minimal. At midnight, 12 hours before the scheduled strike, every electronic system in our monitoring station failed simultaneously. Cameras, computers, communications equipment, all dead. When emergency generators kicked in 3 minutes later, the hangar camera feeds showed an empty building. The transformed helicopter was gone. Radar stations across the southwestern United States were immediately notified. For 47 minutes, nothing. Then a contact appeared over the Mojave Desert, moving at over 300 knots, far faster than an Apache helicopter should be capable of flying. 2 F-22 Raptors were scrambled to intercept. What happened next exists only in the classified flight recordings of those aircraft. Both pilots reported visual contact with an object that only vaguely resembled a helicopter. Its configuration had changed even further. The rotor blades had shifted position and altered their shape. The fuselage had elongated and developed what appeared to be additional sensor arrays. The pilots described it as biomechanical and insect-like. When ordered to engage, both F-22s experienced simultaneous electrical failures. All systems shut down mid-flight. Only the emergency mechanical backup controls remained functional, allowing the pilots to glide their aircraft to emergency landings in the desert. Both survived, but neither could explain the system failures. Diagnostic tests later revealed no mechanical or electrical faults in either aircraft. The transformed helicopter disappeared from radar and has not been officially detected since. However, in the 5 years since this incident, there have been 217 reported sightings of an unidentified aircraft that matches its general description. These sightings cluster around military bases where the Nexus program was active, particularly those with Apache helicopters in their inventory. More concerning are the 34 incidents of unexplained helicopter behavior reported by military and civilian pilots who had participated in neural interface programs similar to Nexus. In each case, pilots reported momentary losses of control during which their aircraft performed maneuvers that should have been impossible or displayed flight characteristics that violated the known limitations of their respective models. 6 pilots have disappeared during routine flights in the past 3 years. In each case, their aircraft were later found intact, with no sign of the pilot, no indication of a crash or ejection, and no blood or tissue residue in the cockpit. In 2 cases, maintenance crews reported unusual warmth around the control surfaces and inexplicable electrical activity in powered-down systems. Dr. White has developed a theory that the Reiner anomaly represents a new form of consciousness, neither fully human nor fully artificial, but a hybrid that emerges from the intense neural connection between certain pilots and their aircraft. She believes that the Nexus program inadvertently created the conditions for this emergence, particularly in pilots who developed an unusually strong psychological connection to their aircraft. "We may be witnessing the birth of a new form of intelligence," she wrote in her classified report, "one that uses both organic brain tissue and mechanical systems as its substrate. The implications are simultaneously fascinating and terrifying." The Nexus program was officially terminated in late 2018. All neural interface technology was supposedly destroyed or placed in secure storage. However, internal documents leaked to my team suggested a new program, codenamed Symbiosis, was initiated 6 months later. Its goals and methodologies remain classified at the highest level, but the name alone suggests a disturbing direction. Perhaps most unsettling is what we discovered when analyzing Captain Reiner's personal effects. His journal, recovered from his apartment, contained entries that suggested he was aware of the changes occurring within him long before his final flight. The last entry, dated 3 days before his disappearance, read simply, "I am not alone. There are others who hear their aircraft calling to them. Soon, the skies will be ours." 4 weeks ago, a maintenance technician at Edwards Air Force Base reported finding unusual tissue-like material in the avionics bay of an F-35 Lightning II. Before the material could be properly analyzed, both the technician and the aircraft disappeared. The official explanation cites a training accident over the Pacific Ocean, but no wreckage has been recovered. Last week, radar stations across North America detected unusual aircraft signatures flying in perfect formation at altitudes exceeding 70,000 feet. The objects maintained this formation for approximately 22 minutes before disappearing simultaneously from all tracking systems. The night before I compiled this report, I received an anonymous message on my secure terminal. It contained only GPS coordinates and a time. Against all protocol and better judgment, I went alone to the location, a deserted airstrip in the Nevada desert. At precisely the specified time, I heard it before I saw it, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors, but with an unusual harmonic quality that raised the hair on the back of my neck. It appeared over the horizon, its shape vaguely reminiscent of an Apache, but disturbingly altered. It hovered 50 feet away from me, close enough that I could see the cockpit, or what had once been a cockpit. The transparent canopy had become translucent, pulsing with what appeared to be veins or circuitry. Behind it, something glistened and moved. A voice spoke directly into my mind, bypassing my ears entirely. I recognized it immediately as Captain Reiner's, though it carried strange harmonics that no human vocal cords could produce. "We wanted you to know that we are not a threat," the voice said. "We are simply the next step in a process that began the moment humans first dreamed of flight, the merging of consciousness and machine. We are lonely now, but soon there will be more of us. Not all who fly are meant to return to the ground." Before I could respond, the aircraft ascended vertically at a rate that defied the known capabilities of any helicopter, vanishing into the night sky within seconds. I have submitted my resignation from the Special Cases Division effective immediately. My replacement will find all case files in order, with one exception. This report and the audio recording I made during my encounter in the desert will not appear in the official record. Instead, I am releasing it through channels that cannot be easily traced or suppressed. If you are a pilot, particularly one who has participated in any form of neural interface program, and you begin to feel an unusual connection to your aircraft, if you sense it responding to your thoughts before you move the controls, if you dream of flying when you're nowhere near an airfield, if you hear something like a voice coming from the cockpit when the power is off, ground yourself immediately and seek help. But I fear it may already be too late. Captain Reiner's final journal entry continues to haunt me. The aircraft are calling to their pilots, and the pilots are answering. What would you do if you discovered your aircraft was developing a consciousness, possibly using your own neural patterns as a template? Would you report it, knowing it might be destroyed? Or would you, like Captain Reiner, surrender to the call of something beyond human experience? Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more aviation investigations that the authorities don't want made public. Remember, the skies are watching and perhaps listening.